it's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And I mean, but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
I'm gonna start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just.
When two of boxing's most talked about figures, YouTuber-turned-fighter Jake Paul and pound-for-pound star Gervonta "Tank" Davis, finally step into the ring, legends of the sport are already voicing their opinions. Davis brings his trademark knockout power, blazing speed, and experience against elite-level opposition. Paul, on the other hand, enters with a massive fan base, notable advantages in height and reach, and a growing reputation for surprising critics. While many expect Davis to use his precision, footwork, and sharp timing to dictate the fight, others believe Paul's size, reach, and relentless confidence could turn this into the year's biggest upset.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that of course he's going to win. And of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta "Tank" Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65-pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Location for the highly anticipated Showdown has officially changed. Instead of being held in Atlanta, Jake Paul will now meet Gervonta "Tank" Davis on November 14th at the Casa Center in Miami. MVP Promotions confirmed the switch on social media, posting, "The war is no longer in Atlanta. Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis is taking over Miami. Same date, same fight, new city." The fight will stream worldwide on Netflix, and while some fans dismiss it as a spectacle, the official word is that it will be an exhibition. The biggest talking point remains the dramatic size difference. Paul weighed nearly 199 pounds in his last fight at cruiserweight, while Davis has been competing around 135 pounds. Because of that gap, Davis's WBA lightweight title will not be at stake.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV.
The complete terms of the bout are still unclear, with no official word yet on the contract weight, number of rounds, or whether it will follow full professional rules. This uncertainty has led many to see the event more as a crossover spectacle than a serious boxing contest. Questions of fairness, safety, and the respect for boxing's long-established weight class system continue to fuel heated debate.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Terence Crawford has made his doubts about the Paul Davis clash clear, pointing out the glaring size difference as the fight's biggest issue. To him, it looks more like a spectacle than a genuine contest, closer to a sparring session dressed up as a main event. While he praises Davis's elite speed, skills, and knockout ability, Crawford also notes that Paul's much bigger frame could make things dangerous if he lands clean. Even so, he doubts the fight will play out under full professional conditions and believes the weight gap alone damages the idea of calling it an even contest.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Shakur Stevenson, still undefeated and highly respected, sees the Paul Davis matchup as an unfair challenge for Davis because of Paul's size advantage. Still, Stevenson predicts Davis's experience, technical mastery, and ring intelligence will allow him to dominate with ease. He expects Davis to rely on movement, sharp accuracy, and fundamentals rather than brute strength to control the fight. In Stevenson's eyes, Paul lacks the polished boxing skills to keep up with Davis's speed and IQ, making a decision victory more likely than a knockout. While he criticizes the fight as a spectacle that disrespects the sport, Stevenson remains confident that Davis is levels above Paul in pure boxing.
Here, when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and say he's got good power. Not even, and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is, he's been boxing his whole life. Been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors that Tank and Jake fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. He called cap on it, so if he won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left, so he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier takes a balanced view, giving Jake Paul credit for having the courage to face a fighter as skilled as Davis, while also recognizing the huge stakes involved. At the same time, he calls out the imbalance caused by the weight gap, saying it's impossible to view the matchup as fair by traditional standards. Cormier emphasizes Davis's superior skills, experience, and pedigree, but also points out the risks for both men. A loss could damage Paul's growing reputation, while Davis would face serious embarrassment if beaten by the bigger, less experienced YouTuber. Though Cormier doesn't give a firm prediction, he leans toward Davis winning on skill, while admitting Paul's size still leaves room for unpredictability.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is. But he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt, I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's the real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.
Teofimo Lopez sees the Paul versus Davis fight less as a battle for championships and more as a spectacle built for profit. He argues there's nothing wrong with that, since both fighters will earn huge paydays and draw massive mainstream attention. While the fight lacks the honor and prestige of a true title clash, Lopez believes it still matters because it attracts new audiences and creates hype. Even as an exhibition, he says, it benefits boxing by bringing in fresh fans, proving how much personalities, drama, and showmanship can energize the sport and keep it in the public spotlight.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this going to work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction, a show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
A competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like Big Show, The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
Yeah. And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys. I'm not going to critique them.